So here's where we get into the other kind of big introductory conversation. Now, folks, this is also extremely testable, but this is also not the only time you're going to hear it. And I introduced a lot of this, not a lot, some of it yesterday when we were talking about the Relink book. And I think somebody asked me the question. And so let's just clarify something with language here. And I said this yesterday, but let's just say it again. There is two parts to your exam. There is your national portion, which is going to deal with generic real estate concepts that are more than anything universally accepted throughout the country. Loans and financing and debt to income ratios and title searches. And these are all things that are recognized in every state. But then there are some very specific things on a state-by-state basis, as I've kind of been introducing and alluding to. Now, that being said, let's go ahead and just slap some language down so you can understand what you're getting yourselves into here. I told you yesterday that there are some states that still utilize what's called a salesperson. And North Carolina used to have salespeople, but then we upgraded at a certain point to what's called a broker-only state, which means every single person who's licensed in North Carolina as a real estate broker is a broker, albeit on different statuses, but they are a broker. And so the entry level in North Carolina is called a provisional broker. Okay, it's a baby broker. We're going to talk more about that in just a second. But the equivalent in other states that are not broker-only states would be a salesperson. The key piece here for both is you cannot operate without direct supervision. Both a provisional broker and a salesperson have to have direct supervision. Now, here's the big difference. In North Carolina, you can be a provisional broker practicing real estate for exactly 18 months. No matter what, after 18 months, you can no longer practice real estate as a provisional broker. So that means you either stop practicing or you become a full broker to continue practicing. Those are your options. In the states with a salesperson, you can be a salesperson indefinitely. You will just always have to have somebody supervising you. Now, the person doing the supervising in North Carolina is called a broker in charge. And then in other states that have salespeople, they call them just a broker, sometimes referred to a managing broker or an employing broker. They really only have the two categories. Salesperson, low end of the totem pole. Managing broker, employing broker, top banana. In North Carolina, we have 4 different statuses of our broker's license, as we introduced in the Relink book. Provisional broker, aka the baby broker. The full broker. The BIC eligible broker, and the BIC, being the broker in charge. Now, that wasn't fun enough. Let me introduce another reason why this class kinda is irritating. Okay? There are a lot of synonyms in this class, folks. If you're not familiar with a synonym, it is multiple words that mean the same thing. And so when I say broker, the synonyms for the word broker are non-provisional broker and full broker, which means if you're taking the North Carolina portion of the test and you see broker, full broker, or non-provisional broker, they all mean the exact same thing, which is irritating. Spoiler alert, there's a lot of terms like that in this course. Now, here's a piece of advice. When you are reading the word non, you read it as not. Not provisional. Why is that important? Because I can't tell you how often students get questions wrong because they read a question and it said non-provisional, but they answered it as provisional. And what a provisional broker can do and a full broker can do are vastly different things. So if you answer it that way, you're going to get it wrong. Now, I'm going to come back to some of these terminologies more in just a second. Of course, I introduced the other licenses as well in North Carolina, aside from the different statuses, which the LNCL, the Limited Non-Resident Commercial License, and then the firm license. We're going to get into all this, and I'm going to explain the provisional broker in just a second, Raphael. Hang tight. Before we get there, though, let me introduce another reason why this class is kind of confusing from a language point of view. Folks, don't look at this list. Don't worry about this list. I want you to think from personal experience. If I asked you, what do people call real estate professionals? What are the terminologies we use day in and day out for real estate professionals? What do you call them? Realtor? Agent? Realtor? Broker. There you go. You named them all. There you go. Realtor, broker, agent, or real estate agent. Now, here's the thing, folks. Understand that not a single one of those means the same thing. And let that sink in for a second. Not a single one of those means the same thing. And this is where there is what we have that I like to refer to as misnomers, right? We use the terms, we say the terms, and I'm not saying they're wrong, but let me explain, folks. When we call somebody an agent is somebody who represents other people. And so we're called real estate agents because we're looking after buyers, or we're looking after sellers, or we're looking after lessors, or we're looking after lessees. So we're called an agent because we're representing somebody and their best interest. That's why we're called real estate agents. Well, we're called brokers because we get a real estate broker's license. That's what this class works up to facilitate getting. And then you are called a realtor if and only if you join a trade organization called the National Association of Realtors. So I'll make a powerful statement here. All realtors are brokers, but not all brokers are realtors. Not everybody joins that trade organization. You don't have to. At least not in some respects. Now let's back up to this middle word again, broker. Folks, broker, can you think of some times that people are called brokers that don't have to do with real estate? Give me some examples.
Mortgage broker.
Mortgage broker, what else?
Actually, freight broker.
Freight broker? Yeah, there you go. That's it. Yeah.
Trade or insurance.
Yep. Insurance, stockbrokers. There you go. Folks, all a broker is somebody who brings together two parties. It's a facilitator, if you will. In other words, we as real estate brokers, we bring together people who want to buy and sell real estate, people who want to lease out, and people who want to lease real estate. We're brokering the deal and we're getting paid for it. Insurance brokers bring together insurance companies who want to give out insurance policies and people who need insurance policies. Mortgage brokers bring together banks that want to lend money and people who want to borrow money, so on and so forth. So we're kind of the middleman. And so we are real estate brokers. You need this license to be able to facilitate these deals, to bring these parties together and get paid for it. So there is this difference. Now let me go ahead and help some of y'all out. Now this is just, making a point. Don't everybody get, upset about it. But that last one on the list, realtor, folks, it is, okay, listen, in the South, I feel like there needs to be some special emphasis here. It is in fact pronounced realtor. Okay, sometimes us Southerners, we put extra syllables where they don't belong. Okay, so I don't care what you've heard. It is not a realtor. It is not a realtor. Folks, when you get sick, do you go see a doctor? No. You go see a doctor. So it is in fact realtor. Now that I made my pace with it, you do you, boo-boo, whatever you want to call it. Do it to it, Pruitt. Just know I'm judging you silently. Okay, I'm going to keep it to myself, but I'm going to judge you. But it's, it is what it is. So there's a little bit of some nuance there, right? These are not the same word. We just happen to be all of these things at any given time. Genesis says, can't help it. It's a Sofia Vergara. And that one episode of Modern Family is quite hilarious to us as real estate brokers. With the old lady, that was a good one. So we're going to get into those different license statuses some more in just a second. Let me introduce another concept that has a tendency to confuse students very early on, and we're going to get there, okay? I keep talking about entities, okay? When I say entities, I just mean businesses. Beverly, which part specifically? The pronunciation or these things being interchangeable?
No, it's just it's been drilled into me that the broker is basically like, that's who holds the license, and everything under the broker is the salesperson. So when I hear the term broker, obviously there's different levels of brokerage. So yeah, this is different. Yeah,
and that's why I warned you, is sometimes stuff, whether it be from, other states or, personal experience, that you do have to unlearn, especially the way that the test is going to flow. But we'll make sure you get there. It's going to be more like the North Carolina specific stuff that you got to worry about.
Broker actually hold the license for the company, or that would be like
I'm going to introduce that in a second. We've got another person who is not really in those four categories, but we call them a qualifying broker. They hold the license for the company. So we're going to get there in just a second. Yeah. So this part does get a little bit confusing. So I keep talking about entities. And so when I talk about entities, well, folks, we talked about entities being an exemption from needing a license, like Microsoft selling Microsoft's property. That was an entity, a corporation, partnership, an LLC. Those are all types of entities. But there's also the entity conversation in the real estate world. And so the Coldwell Bankers, the Keller Williams, the Remaxes, these are all brokerage firms. And so when an entity is created to do brokerage activities and getting paid for it, folks, can we all agree that Coldwell Banker, Keller Williams, Remax, and all those companies are getting paid for doing brokerage activities? And so if you noticed when I read the actual definition of a license being required, it says any person, partnership, limited liability company, corporation, whatever. And so if a person is doing brokerage, they need a broker's license. If a entity is doing brokerage, it needs a broker's license. The difference is people get broker's licenses, entities get firm licenses. Does Microsoft need one? No. They're not doing brokerage, they're selling their own property. But your real estate brokerage firms do need licenses. And so here's the thing that kind of confuses people. It makes sense that if somebody wanted to go out and open a brokerage firm, they're going to create an entity called, let's just call it ABC Realty, LLC. And if ABC Realty, LLC is going to be doing brokerage activities, it would have to have a firm license for ABC Realty, LLC. But there's another side of the coin called a sole proprietorship. It is possible to operate independently without an entity. Folks, if I wanted to right now, I could be Seth Chauncey's sole proprietor. I don't need a firm. I have the ability to operate independently. And so, ergo, I would just need a broker's license. That's this thing right here. I would not need a firm license because I don't have an entity. Everybody with me? It is only if you create an entity that you need a firm license. So let's take this a step further. There are, I'm trying to think of how I can spin this where it's not going to. Well, we're going to get into the sole proprietorship thing a little bit more. Folks, the real reason that a lot of people have this understanding of why you would have an entity over the sole proprietorship, most people, kind of this general understanding of liability protection. As kind of the name implies, right? Limited liability company. So if I went out as Seth Chauncey and I helped somebody in a real estate transaction and I screwed up royally, they're suing me because I screwed up royally. If I created, Chauncey Realty Group LLC and got a firm license and I set things up a certain way, they would potentially, if I screwed up, they'd be potentially suing my business. And maybe there's some protections for my personal assets. That's one of the big reasons why somebody would do one over the other, but that's not going to be the testable part of it. It's just to help you understand. There's, of course, some tax benefits to entities over sole proprietorships as well. But at the end of the day, neither one of those are really testable, but you do have to understand sole proprietorships use brokers' licenses because they have not created entities, and firms use firm licenses because they are entities doing real estate brokerage. And so when we go a little bit more in depth into this, okay, the individual people versus the companies, brokers versus firm license. And so there's some key questions that we have to ask or some key questions that we have to answer. And this is going to be a very in-depth conversation when we get into some of the agency, because agency is going to look a little bit different depending on if we're talking about a company or we're talking about a sole proprietorship. I'm not going to give away too much yet, though, because you're not quite there. And so the big difference is a person versus a legal entity. Okay, that's the big piece. Firms are entities with firm licenses. Sole proprietors are individuals operating independently with their broker's license. Now, here's where I got to kind of make you understand something, folks. When I say operating independently, I don't mean it has to just be one person. There are times where sole proprietorships or sole proprietors could have other licensees working with them. And same thing with firms. Firms could be a lot of people. Firms could be few people. It really just depends. You may have a default setting for your brain that when I say firm, you think a lot. When I say sole proprietor, you may think one. But I warn you, you can't do that. Let me show you what I mean here. I want you to look at this gentleman right here. Tell me if he is operating as a sole proprietor or if he is operating as a firm. Can't tell. Folks, there is nothing stopping this man from just having one of these and operating as whatever his name is, sole proprietor. But equally, he could have created an entity with the Secretary of State, being the sole member of an entity and operating as a brokerage firm. We have no idea. Well, how about this? Look at these very fine-looking, well-dressed people. Are they operating as a sole proprietorship or a real estate firm? Still don't know, do we? Because if certain criteria are met, imagine that, this young lady right here on the side is a sole proprietor, but she is operating as a sole proprietorship, which means she's affiliated other people under her as a person. There's still no firm license. There's still no entity, but all these people are part of her sole proprietorship. And so the key takeaway is that it's not about how many people there are. It's about whether or not we're operating through a person's broker's license or through an entity's firm license. That's what it comes down to. And that's going to mean a lot more later when we get into agency discussions. Because you could have a one-person entity, you could have a 20-person sole proprietorship. It's not about numbers. Everybody with me? I'll give you some more examples on that later. If you're feeling okay-ish about this, that's enough in this piece for now, because we do have to build layers on it. It does get a little more confusing, but that's for later conversation. Beverly says, what is the benefit to doing it this way, avoiding the fees? I honestly can't answer that because sure, if you are able to operate independently, you may not have fees for a brokerage firm, but of course you're paying for everything else out of pocket, right? Your own website, your own marketing, your own E&O insurance, your own this, your own that. And so it just depends. Some people just like running the show. Some people think they can get better deals on their benefit. Who knows? Right? We won't get into the technicalities there. There's different reasons. So before we get into the big categories that are the most testable, let's just reiterate the kind of odd duck category that I talked about a little bit ago. This is not grouped in the statuses of your broker's license in North Carolina. This is, and I'm sorry, I just saw the other question in the chat with Bree. So it depends on how their business is registered with the state. Well, let me just clarify something. When we're dealing with a sole proprietor, it's not registered with the state. You're just operating on your own volition. You're just running it through you, the person. Basically, a sole proprietorship is business passing through a person as opposed to an entity that's actually registered with the Secretary of State. So only entities are registered with the Secretary of State. So this one, as I said, this is one of the rare things in this class that's exactly what it sounds like, thank God, because you'll realize that there's some things, like if you read them verbatim, you're like, oh, it probably means this. It doesn't. This does. It is a limited non-resident commercial license. And the reason this exists is because North Carolina says, okay, well, hey, if you're licensed to do brokerage in another state, we're not going to force you to take our licensing class if all you want to do is come into our state to do commercial brokerage. It's a special rule. And so it's limited, meaning temporary. It is to do commercial brokerage only. And it is only for people who do not live in this state. Now, they're not just going to let you do it, though. There is some criteria you have to meet. Number one, you have to be actively licensed in another state. And you have to have what's called a declaration of affiliation and a cooperation agreement in place with a resident broker to supervise you and your state dealings. And of course, the NC broker would maintain records and funds and all that stuff. So kind of a special category there. And we're going to talk about license renewals. This would have to be renewed every year, just like any other license. What you got, Beverly?
So Airbnb management, would this be under that particular particular type of licensure, or no?
No, because that's not commercial. Even though it's for investments, those are still individual property, so that'd be residential. Yeah. What you got, Bree?
So for this one, would the broker be receiving referrals for this since they are supervising that, or no?
The cooperation agreement that I'm talking about, that would outline what kind of compensation they get for supervising them. They would basically have an agreement between them of, for every deal, you get this much of it for a percentage or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's no one size fits all. It's whatever they agree to.
So, question, when it comes to firms, do they only have to have one broker in charge for each state?
No. Here's the thing, folks, and I'm not going to get too much into this because this is about the point in time when I start getting into this. Y'all are going to have a lot of questions, and so I love the questions, but the thing is, there's a lot you can't fully understand yet because I got to give you like baby steps until we get there. So here's the short answer. When I say Coldwell Banker, that's actually a franchise. All Coldwell Bankers are different firms. Coldwell Banker Advantage is different than Coldwell Banker HPW, is different than Coldwell Banker Seacoast, they're all different. Same thing with Keller Williams. Every single Keller Williams Platinum, Keller Williams Legacy, Century 21 Partners, those are all franchises. If you pay enough money and you meet criteria, you can open one. And so the individual offices or the individual groupings are the firms, and every single firm office has to have their own broker in charge. So let's say that, a Century 21 Partners has 6 offices. They need at least 6 BICs. They can't have one for the entire state unless they're only operating out of one office for the entire state. Yeah, we're going to get into a lot more in-depth conversations on kind of the nuances there. But like I said, we got to go baby steps, because if I gave you you ever seen that movie A Few Good Men, Ryan? I'm like Jack Nicholson right now. You can't handle the truth, okay? You're not there yet. So I got to work your way up to the way that it actually is. But we'll get there. So let's get back into this fun-filled discussions. Okay, I just mentioned this limited non-resident commercial license. This is definitely not the most testable aspect of the licensing world. Is this a category that you should know? Yeah. And when I say category, I mean a separate license, right? This is not like a category of your broker's license. This is something else completely different. And as I said, limited for people who do not live in North Carolina to transact commercial brokerage only, has to have this declaration of affiliation and the cooperation agreement in place with a resident North Carolina broker in order to get this type of license. So let's get into the actual extremely testable aspect of the license categories. And as I said, folks, every single one of you is going through pre-licensing right now. And so when you pass this class and you finish your application and you go and take your state licensing exam, you will be issued a broker's license. Now, folks, your broker's license, when it comes in the mail, will look just like mine, but yours will be on a different status. Yours will be on what we call provisional status. And so as a provisional broker, think of it like training wheels, right? You put these training wheels on a bike and we're like, okay, you've got to learn to ride this bike. Now, folks, the thing about it is, and I like this analogy for a couple of reasons. If you think about a kid and you give them a bike and you put training wheels on it, just because it has training wheels, are you going to let them just go out completely unsupervised and drive through the highway with their training wheels on? Hopefully the answer is no, and if it's yes, we might need to, have a conversation with Child Protective Services, because that's not good Don't just highways are fine, you've got training wheels. It's not how it works, in case you were wondering. Folks, it's very similar in the real estate industry. Just because you have these training wheels doesn't mean you get to just go out and do. And so a provisional broker, folks, I'm going to start throwing a bunch of different words here. Your license is initially issued on provisional status. But on top of that, it's also issued on what we call inactive status. So yeah, you get a license just like mine, but you can't use yours when you first get it. You have to activate it to be able to use it. Now, we're going to talk more about the activation in a second. But folks, you are only allowed to play real estate for exactly 18 months as a provisional broker. After that, we rip the training wheels off. No ifs, ands, buts, or coconuts. And so let me paint a picture for you. That broker in charge is this supervisory broker in North Carolina. And so you all go through this process, you get your license, and it's issued on provisional status. All you have to do to activate your provisional license is find a BIC. Think of it as mommy and daddy supervising you on the training wheels. You can't go out and ride unless your parents are supervising you. That's what the BIC is, your supervisor. And so they have agreed to take you under their wing and to watch you and observe you. It's called active and direct supervision in North Carolina. Now, folks, please understand that the day you get your license, you could go out and find a BIC and you could start practicing real estate that day, legally speaking. And there is nothing stopping you on provisional status from doing 10, 20, 30, 40, 60 deals in that 18-month period. You are a broker, and as long as your license is active, you can go and play real estate. But the only way your license can be active is if you have a broker in charge as a provisional broker. If you do not affiliate with a firm and or a broker in charge, you're not playing real estate. That piece of paper is worthless until you do. Now, you can only play real estate as a provisional broker, as I said, for 18 months. Folks, that number is very important. 18 months. Okay, all of this stuff is extremely testable. Is this the only time you're going to hear it? No, but it is very important. And so, in order to go from a provisional broker to a full broker, also called a non-provisional broker, also just called a broker, you have to take those 3 30-hour post-licensing courses. They are 301, Broker Relationships and Responsibilities, 302, Contracts and Closings, and 303, North Carolina Laws, Rules, and Legal Concepts. You can take them in any order. They do not have to be in order. And you just have to get them done prior to 18 months. So when I say 18 months, it is 18 months from your initial licensure. So whatever date is on this license issuance, 18 months from that. Think of it like Cinderella and a pumpkin, folks. Imagine you get your license on provisional status. You go out and you join a broker in charge in a firm, and you're playing real estate as I like to call it. And you're rocking and rolling, and oops, you forgot to take your post-licensing courses, and your 18th month hits. Your status will drop back to inactive, and you must cease and desist all brokerage activities. You can't use your license anymore until you become a full broker. So that's what we mean when we say North Carolina, you can be a provisional broker for exactly 18 months practicing real estate. But in those states with salespeople, you could be a salesperson forever because you'd be supervisor forever. But we got a time limit in North Carolina. A couple questions in the chat. In doing business as a provisional broker, are you required to state that you are a provisional during that period? No, not to the general public. That is not something you have to advertise, right? Like, I'm a provisional broker, right? You start like whispering it. It's not required.
Yeah, I was thinking at it from a marketing perspective. For sure.
Yeah, and so here's the fun thing about that, Ashley. And so that's kind of why a lot of people love partnering with these big brokerage firms, because nobody wants to be helping a client be like, I got my license 6 days ago. You know why you partner with a giant brokerage firm? Because you say, well, our firm's been in the business for over 60 years, and we've been, we do over, 6,000 deals a year. Because you're part of the firm, right? And so then it looks like you're not gonna be like, you're my first client, never done this before, right? You're not gonna say that, but you got people to help you. Like, no, we do 6,000 deals a year, right? Sure we do.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, wouldn't that be awkward, right? Like, because everybody's gonna like whisper, right? Like, hey, I just want to let you know I'm a provisional broker. So excited, right?
Client ever.
Yeah, right. First client ever. It's always that awkward thing. It's like, you're like, can they smell it on me? Do they know I'm brand new? Right? You got to fake it till you make it, as they say, right? That's a good question. Other question in the chat: is the post-licensing education course pass, fail, or completion based? Yes. Let me help you out here. There is a final exam for those. It is nothing like pre-licensing. I told you pre-licensing, because of the complexity and the amount of information, 50-50 pass rate getting out of the class. Post-licensing, 99.99% pass rate. As long as you pay attention and do everything, you'll be fine. Janet says, can you do the post-licensing classes before you find a BIC? Absolutely. You can start taking them as soon as you get your license. You do not have to wait to have a BIC, but you can't do real estate until you find a BIC. But you could be an inactive provisional broker taking the post licensing. Good question. Okay, question answered. Cool. There you go. So provisional broker is where you're all going to start, okay? And when you first get your license, I told you it's inactive. You can't use it until you go out and you find a broker in charge. You have to be supervised. So initially, you are all going to be issued a license on provisional and inactive status. The way that you activate is finding a broker in charge to affiliate you and supervise you. The way that you move from provisional to full broker is what? I just said it.
90 hours post licensing.
90 hours of post licensing. There you go. You will find that I always pop those quizzes, and because like these are things that you need to remember, so I'll make you repeat it back to me. Also, my favorite thing is when you mouth the answers, right? Like I'm not unmuting, but I'll mouth the answer for this one. Like I get really good at reading lips teaching Zoom classes because it's just like nobody wants to unmute. I get it, and it's a lot of work. So the way that you move from provisional broker to full broker is post-licensing. Okay, those 3 30-hour post-licensing courses. Folks, I want you to understand what that means. 30 hours, you could really and truthfully, think about it, get your license. What is it? Your class is going to end December. You could get your license by the end of December, and you could be a full broker in January. Because if you wanted to take the classes that fast, you could take post-licensing that fast and move from provisional broker to full broker in a matter of weeks, as fast as you could take 30 hours of post-licensing 3 times over. The only rule is they can't overlap. So like you can't be taking 301 on this computer and 302 on this computer simultaneously, but as long as they're not overlapping, you're fine. So you can move rather quickly from provisional broker to full broker. And I'm going to give you some reasons why that may not be, the most advantageous and some other considerations. But from a testable point of view, if I asked you which of the following would be true about your license in North Carolina, and one of the options was you could move from provisional broker to full broker as fast as you wanted to, that is true. That is true. As fast as you can take those classes, that's all it takes. What you got, Genesis?
So I'm kind of confused on this part that we're talking about right now.
Mm-hmm.
So once we pass the class and we pass our exam and we get licensed, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can make sales or we can't make sales. I know you say we gotta get supervised, right?
When this comes in the mail, you can still do nothing. You can look at it and you can admire it.
Okay.
But as soon as you go out and find a firm and a broker in charge to affiliate with, right then, right there, you can go out and make sales.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's okay. Because I was understanding that until you become a broker, that's until when you can start doing sales and stuff like that.
Well, you are a broker. You're just a provisional broker. But a provisional broker cannot operate without supervision. Yeah. What you got, Antonia?
So my question is, so say like you said, after the process of moving forward with getting your provisional or with it being inactive, and like you said, you can go ahead and take the post licensing as soon as after. My question basically is asking, so say after you do that part, do you still have to go, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to make my question make sense. But basically, are you able to take the post licensing even before you get to a BIC, or would you have to activate it with a BIC first and then you can take the class?
No. Once you have a license number issued, you can start taking post licensing. You just can't practice real estate until you have a BIC, but you could start taking post licensing even without practicing and without being active.
Okay, so like even after, so say like before, because I understand what you're saying. I just want to make sure that I have it in my mind. So basically, like you said, oh, I'm sorry, it's just correlating. Okay, I got it.
No worries. James, what you got? Or I'm sorry, I keep saying James. What was it? Boo? What was it? Brooks. I had to remember. There you go. I'm like, nope, it's not yet. Brooks.
No, you're good. So
So with the inactive status,
Hmm.
right? You can take your post licensing and have a BIC backing you. What paperwork needs to be done after you find the BIC and complete the post licensing to move from provisional to full broker?
Okay. So that's kind of two separate answers because you kind of combine like you're taking it, but you're inactive. If you're with a BIC, you're not inactive. So as soon as you find a BIC to supervise you, even as a provisional broker, they're going to activate you. And so there's a piece of paperwork with the Real Estate Commission called Form 2.08. Now, I'll go ahead. This is kind of jumping the gun a little bit, but this is testable, so I'll go ahead and give you the insight here. The way that it's worded is the second your BIC fills out Form 2.08, you are allowed to start practicing real estate. The way the rule is written, as soon as they hit submit to the commission, you can start doing real estate brokerage activities. You're considered active. However, if you have not received written notice from the Real Estate Commission within 30 days of that activation, that they have updated your status, they mail you a mailer. If you haven't gotten that within 30 days, you're supposed to stop practicing brokerage and reach out to the commission to verify why. So that's instantaneous. The second, let's say you get your license on December 30th or 20th, you join a brokerage firm on the 21st, your BIC fills out that paperwork, you're an active broker on the 21st. Now, for the other part of your question, the post-licensing, there's no paperwork. When you take a course that's post-licensing with schools like mine, we submit to the commission that you got number 1 done, number 2 done, number 3 done. And the second we submit number 3 for you, they will automatically update your status from provisional broker to full broker in their system, just like that. No paperwork.
So after we complete all 4 of those things, we no longer need a BIC, correct?
Hang tight. Hang tight. Hang tight. So, yeah, we're asking really good questions. We're going to get into some of this, and really and truthfully, I can tell that some of you are like very interested in like what this means for you in the future. I would caution though, don't focus on what it means for you in the future. Focus on what the test questions are going to look like, right? We can figure out the future stuff later, but first things first, let's pass a test because there's going to be a lot of different ways that these test questions are structured, and they can throw you for a loop. So the provisional broker cannot do anything without supervision. Okay, that's the way it works. And so I told you, from a national point of view, salespeople, and from our state point of view, provisional brokers, same level. They cannot do real estate brokerage without supervision. Salespeople are supervised by employing or managing brokers, and in North Carolina, provisional brokers are supervised by a broker in charge. Now, a couple pieces here with a provisional broker. This last little note on my slide, it says a provisional broker may only be affiliated with / work for one broker in charge or one firm at a time. And so this is one of those North Carolina laws that are testable. So let me explain what this means. Folks, right now, as my broker status, let's just call me a full broker for the time being. A full broker could be duly affiliated with multiple brokerage firms. So, for example, if I wanted to be, I could be affiliated with Coldwell Banker and Keller Williams and Century 21 all at the same time. The only thing that it would require for me is verbal permission from all BICs for them to say, I'm okay with this. And if all the BICs were okay, I can have multiple affiliations as a full broker. A provisional broker cannot do that. You can only have one firm / one BIC at a time, except, and this is a curveball, this is where we're introducing some new things that are kind of interesting to you, I'm sure. The one exception to that, folks, have you ever heard of a real estate team? I'm sure most of you have, right? They're all over the place. It's the cool thing to do nowadays is have real estate brokerage teams. And so sometimes teams, the way they're structured, will have a team BIC, and then that office will also have a BIC. So like Coldwell Banker, and then the Susie is Awesome sales team within Coldwell Banker. And that office would have a BIC, and Susie sales team would have a BIC. A provisional broker can be duly affiliated in that instance if it is a office BIC and a team BIC in the same physical office location. That's the only exception. Same physical office location. There is no other time that a PB can be duly affiliated. But a full broker, as I said, can be as many affiliations as they want as long as they have the BIC's verbal permission. What you got, Bree?
I think I'm misunderstanding the purpose of the BIC to a full broker. So I understand that the provisional broker needs it to practice.
To be active, yeah.
Yeah, to be active in practice. However, as a full broker, I understand that's the step between active PB and a BIC eligible. But what am I, like, why do I need the BIC as a full broker?
There's a really good answer, and you're gonna hang tight. But let me clarify something just to play devil's advocate, Bree. Before I teach you the textbook side of things, do you know how to do real estate brokerage right now?
No.
No. Well, Bree, what do you have to do to move from a provisional broker to a full broker?
Be supervised.
Nope.
Oh, that's the 2 years.
Nope, not 2.
It's not 2?
No. What? Somebody help Bree out. What does it take to move from a provisional broker to a full broker?
Oh, provisional broker to the full broker is the classes.
3 30-hour post-licensing classes. So, Bree?
3 classes?
Yeah, there you go. Now, Bree,
90
let's...
hours, right? Not the 30 hours, 90 hours.
3 30 hours or a total of 90. So 3 30-hour post-licensing classes. Now, folks, follow along with me here. Bree, imagine you get your license. Some of your peers have asked the question, can I take post-licensing without activating my license? The answer is yes. So, Bree, imagine that you get your license and you turn around and you take 301, 302, 303. You're a full broker now, aren't you?
Yeah.
Do you know how to do real estate brokerage?
No.
Have you ever practiced it?
No.
So what you probably need, even as a full broker, to learn it?
A BIC.
There you go. There you go. Now, there's even more of a textbook answer to this that's even more important. But I always just like to point this out because it starts really like, well, I don't need that. Yeah, you do. Folks, this is the one industry, I promise you, this is not, I made the joke earlier, this is not a fake it till you make it industry. Let me go ahead and scare you a little bit. Real estate brokers are the most sued profession next to doctors. I'm not kidding. Because we are helping people invest hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. And if we, didn't discover that there was a crawl space issue, or didn't tell them that there was an eminent domain issue, or we didn't, right? They take it personally and they come after us. And so you've got to make sure you understand this is not something that you ever want to just figure out as you go. You need somebody to teach it to you. And then, sure, go nuts.